Hi everyone, in this tutorial we will try to create a simple bubble tea character. It will be the basic tutorial, so you can follow along pretty easily. So let's jump into it and create a new Blender file, and we will start by creating the base mesh. Then we will create the animated tapioka balls that will be animating using geometry nodes setup. And after that we'll come to shading and lightning and rendering. So after this tutorial you will be able to create a simple animation. So let's jump into new blend file and start by creating the base mesh of our bubble tea character. Okay, so I will start by deleting the default cube and the lamp, and we'll add a new mesh, a cylinder. I leave up the default setting, which is 32 vertices in the circle. And now let's make the size more into bubble tea size. So maybe height should be something around 20 centimeters. And the X and Y radius should be much smaller. I'm holding Shift key to make the precision of changing the number much higher. But because we've got, as you can see, I can't choose the right size, but when I'm holding Shift it's much easier. Now I will go to edit mode, and you can do this by changing this to edit mode or by press tab. As you can see, I have pie menu for tab, which I think is much more convenient. You can do this in preferences under key map. And under 3D view you have option tab for pie menu, and you can check the checkbox. And as you can see, now I can easily change the mode between edit mode, object, but also vertex paint or sculpt mode, so it's much more convenient than the default tab functionality in my opinion. Okay, let's make the top part of our bubble tea a little bit bigger, and the bottom should be a little bit smaller. And now I would like to bevel them down to create this profile, something like that. And to do this I can just use Ctrl and B shortcut. And as you can see, the proportions are a little bit weird. And that's because our scale isn't set up to 1. So in object mode I can use Ctrl-A shortcut and apply scale. And now when I'm using Ctrl-B, as you can see, we have the standard 45 degree profile. And now I can use the scroll wheel to add more subdivisions level. I think that should be enough. This is 4 segments, and as you can see, and now when I go to object mode and change with the right mouse button the shading mode to shade auto smooth, as you can see we have a base for our bubble tea, but it should be open in this size to actually enable using a cup. So let's go back to edit mode and let's select top faces. I'm currently in face selection mode. You can change this mode by pressing 1, 2 or 3 on the keyboard. And now I can delete this face by pressing X and faces. Okay. Now I would like to change 2 things. I would like to make it more smooth, and the second thing to add a thickness to it, because now it doesn't have any thickness, which is not good. So under modifier tabs we can add modifier first subdivision surface. As you can see, it's much smoother now. We can toggle on and off modifiers by pressing this monitor icon here. And now we can add another modifier, which will be solidify. This is much too thick. We can reduce it by 5 times, even smaller, maybe 0.0013. Okay, I think this is good for now. At the final layer of detail, we can add a bevel modifier here. You can use Shift B shortcut to focus on a specific area. And now when we hide these modifiers to make a little bit more room, add bevel modifier with a really small amount, maybe 0.001, still too big, 0.4, oh, something like that, maybe on level 4. As you can see, we have these little details around here, which is pretty cool. Okay, so that will be it for our plastic cup, for our bubble tea. And now we can create the top part of this cup, and we'll start by adding a sphere to the scene. So let's add a new mesh, UV sphere, and we can delete the bottom part of it by go to edit mode, change the selection to vertices, change the shading method to wireframe by pressing Z key, and let's delete the bottom vertices. Okay, let's scale it up. Move a little bit higher. Maybe something like that. Now we can make a little bit more room for our straw by going to edit mode, selecting the top vertices of our sphere and delete it by pressing X and delete. Okay, now we can change the smooth method to shade auto smooth and apply subdivision surface modifier. Okay, now we can add another modifier, which will be solidify. And I would like to scale this a little bit up. Let's apply the scale for our object. And now we can reduce the solidify intensity. Something similar to the previous one. I remember it was 13, probably. Something like this. This is enough because we don't have now intersection between the meshes. Okay, now we can add another things. I would like to add a loop cut here by pressing Ctrl R. It should be really close, the bottom one. And now we can select the bottom loop by pressing Alt and selection. And now we can scale it a little bit by pressing S. We can even move it a little bit higher by pressing G and Z. Now back to object mode. I think we can make it a little bit bigger. Okay, something like that. We can change the number of subdivisions in viewport to 2 to better see the final results. And I think this is our base for our bubble tea. Now we can create maybe a simple straw. It will just be a new mesh, of course, cylinder. We can scale it a little bit to match the height of our bubble tea. We can scale it on the Z-axis. And now we can scale only in X and Y, so I would use S and Shift Z. Now we only scale an X and Y as axis. Okay, this is pretty thick straw, so I think something like that would be enough. We can rotate it a little bit to make it more natural. And even go close to that edge. So I want to focus only on the straw, so I will use the slash button. And now I want to delete the top and bottom faces in edit mode by changing my selection type to face and delete it, only faces. And now I want to add another modifier, another solidify modifier. Let's apply the scale and let's reduce our solidify to something really small, like 0.5, and set up shade auto smooth. Another slash to back to my full view. Okay. Now I would like to add our characters element, which will be the eyes. So with eyes we will start by creating spheres. Let's scale it. And let's go to the side view and let's delete in vertex mode this half of our sphere. And let's scale it in object mode in X axis. Maybe a little too much. Okay, something like that would be good. And this will be our outer part of our eye. Now I would like to create the black inner part. So let's select everything and duplicate it. And let's scale it. We can get into wireframe mode. Let's set position something like that. In object mode, use shade auto smooth for that, and also maybe subdivision surface. We can apply it, and I also want the back part of our eye to be white, so we can select the loop and press F key to fill it. Now we have much better smooth effect. Okay. So now we have a cyclops, so let's move it on side and duplicate it by using not Shift D but Alt D. Why use the Alt D? Because now when I go to edit mode on the one eye, the second do the same things. And this is also applied to materials and everything else. Okay, now the eyes are a little too big. So we can change the scaling method to individual origins. Let's scale it a little bit, move it maybe down, and okay, we always can adjust that later. Okay, so let's now create the happy face for our bubble tea character, and we can use it by moving the 3D cursor here by pressing Shift and right click. And now we can add a new object, a curve, Bezier curve, and we can go to edit mode, select everything by pressing A and delete it. And now I would like to use the draw curve tool to draw a little smile over here, something like that. Okay, I'm back to object mode, move it a little bit in the X axis. We can edit it in edit mode. For example, we can rotate it, maybe move it, rotate. You can play with it now or later, but it's good for now. But this is only the curve, so I would like to add a little profile to it. So under the Object Data Properties tab, you can find the Geometry tab, and under the bevel option we can increase the depth. That's too much, maybe something about 1, 2. Okay, and also we can select the fill caps option. Okay, so this is my face for now, and this is pretty much or for the outer part of our bubble tea character. We can rotate the eyes maybe to better align the shape of our cup. Okay, now I would like to create the bubble tea inside of our bubble tea character. And to do this, we can start by focusing on our mesh part by pressing slash. And so let's duplicate our mesh and focus on it. Back in edit mode, we can delete the solidify and move the top part a little bit down. We can select our both meshes and go into side view. Let's scale it up. Go into wireframe mode. Let's match the size of it to reduce the intersections. And now we can, by double pressing G, we can slide this loop edge, and we can choose our bubble tea level, and by pressing C key we can slide to the top part also. So I think for now this would be a good level. So let's press slash double times. Okay, so let's fill our top part by pressing F key. Let's delete bevel modifier and hide our subdivision for now. And let's use the select the top face, and by pressing I, something like that, and move this a little bit down. So to create a realistic fluid inside of our cup. Let's now... Okay, let's preview our subdivisions. Okay, let's add one loop cut here. That's pretty good. And let's actually delete this face. And let's fill it with not simple F key, but with Ctrl F and grid fill option. Okay. That's better. We can set the 2 to our subdivision number. And we can even selecting this part and use Ctrl B to create a little bevel. Okay, something like that. And that will be it for our base fluid. Okay. Maybe it's a little too low, so we can actually select everything and move it a little bit higher. Let's scale it up to match our size here. Okay, that's better. So this is our final mesh, and in the next part we'll be focused on creating animated tapioca balls using geometry node system. So thank you for watching and see you in the next part.